Welcome back to a very special episode of Extra Time with Girls on the Ball, taking a deeper dive into the Under-17 FIFA Women's World Cup. And this episode is supported by Xero. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. Welcome back to one of a number of episodes that we are producing with Xero off the back of our trip to the Under-17 Women's World Cup in the Dominican Republic. We'll have a couple more coming out, not just this one, so make sure you've subscribed wherever you get your podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts, and that you're following us across our social media platforms as well at Girls on the Ball, so you don't miss anything. Now, for those of you on YouTube, you will see that we are back in more familiar surroundings, and we are, as our Australian friends would say, rugged up, because we are not in the Dominican Republic anymore, Sophie.
No, it's cold.
It's cold. Back with a bang, back at Wembley last night. But that's another matter. We'll discuss that on our live, lads, okay? Because there's lots to get into. But this is I'm really excited about this episode, Sophie, because today we're going to be talking about data and technology and analysis. And I promise it is super interesting.
It is.
It's probably the biggest thing we've actually taken away from this tournament.
I find it absolutely fascinating.
Yes.
All of it. And it may sound a bit nerdy or a bit boring to people, but actually what FIFA and teams are doing around this area of the game is so important for the future of the game, for the development of the game, and for teams across the board increasing their tactical, technical awareness and everything beyond that.
Now, we came up with this idea because one of Xero's lines around their support of women's football is better numbers off the pitch means better numbers on it. So it gave us this idea that maybe we would go and do a bit of a deeper dive into that kind of data analysis piece. And this is what we have come up with. Firstly, I want to say thanks to FIFA because they were super accommodating in quite a short space of time, giving us lots of really great access, organising interviews for us, tours, and a tour is where we are actually going to start this one because firstly we got a tour of the stadium in Santiago with some of their football technology innovation managers, so shout out to them, they were great, which started pitchside to show us the technology that they were providing in tournament. So your things like your football video support system, which is, some people kind of loosely call it VAR light, but it including myself, a very clever way of providing a sort of VAR referral system for the referee without the need for your full-on kind of VAR referees and all that kind of stuff.
It's
right?
basically a less expensive version of VAR and meant to be maybe a bit quicker at times. Whether that pans out, I think there are learnings from this World Cup about how that works. But essentially it's a review system for match-changing situations, so red cards and penalties mainly. And it means that there's cameras all over the pitch, and the referee can go to the monitor and have a look at what's going on. And there are multiple different angles. I was actually surprised by how many angles they do have. So they are well equipped to spot things, and especially like the goal line technology. There's no goal line technology, but it can spot if a goal has gone over the line or not, like with the Mexico-England game when Mexico thought they scored. Eva Spencer thought she kept it out. Referee gave a goal, went back to the screen and saw that she had actually kept it out.
Yes.
So very important in those terms. And it is an opportunity, I guess, to find a system where when you don't have the money to bring in VAR fully, or like the resources to bring in VAR, a whole team of VAR referees and stuff like that, you have this option where you can just have a kind of lighter version of it.
Yeah.
Super important. It also means that the managers have 2 reviews, so this is a system that works. So works or doesn't work.
It does.
I have a love-hate relationship with this review system, but I do think so it's a bit like in tennis or basketball where you can challenge twice. If your challenge gets upheld, if it's right, then you retain it, and if you lose it, then you lose it.
Yeah. There's also an operator in the broadcast compound who is assisting with the clips and all of that kind of stuff as well. So that was we saw plenty of it. It was used a lot, especially in that England-Mexico game. And it was even the first game, we didn't even know about the referrals. And we're like, what's going on? So that was quite an interesting, and it's cool to be able to have the freedom to be like, these are, you know, innovation people, and it's an opportunity for them to think up unique ways of trying new things and seeing them play out. So that was pretty cool.
I think also what's good to remember is that a lot of these teams, it's an under-17s tournament, so a lot of these managers and these teams haven't used this technology before. So it's a learning process for everyone. And I think some people are maybe overusing it, some people are underusing it. And as they get more accustomed to the technology and more used to it, I think that might level out a bit because they're getting more used to how to use it properly.
As you touched on, there are bench cameras, so there are tablets provided for teams so they can see the action with all of the angles and replays, and that's linked to a team of analysts further up in the gantry, so they have a setup for team analysts as well, where they can review things and look at different camera angles, so that's really interesting. Also, another thing that they're looking at trialling is with substitutes, where rather than the current situation, which is often done with teams writing down the numbers, handing that to the fourth official. The fourth official then having to go and sort that out. And they are trialling tablets where teams have it on a tablet. They're able to put in their substitutions really easily. And that is something that they're trialling at this tournament to see how it works. And it just streamlines the process a little bit more. So that's an interesting one.
It's all about trying to make it more efficient and quicker system to stop mishaps, like when you're handing a piece of paper in the rain to a fourth official and the number runs or something like that.
Or maybe you do your sevens different to how somebody else does your sevens.
Yes, or you're substituting 4 people at the same time. It's an absolute nightmare on paper. So it's just trying to figure out ways that we can streamline the game and make it much easier for everyone involved to be able to get the accurate and correct information.
FTIs also provide, this is really cool, reports post-match, and it's within like a few hours of full time. They'll get this 50 plus, each team, like a 50 plus page report of analysis and insight into the game that they've just played. And that will be shared with teams. It's free to access for teams, and they will get access to that after the match. And it's like, you know, when you think about leveling the playing field in terms of analysis and data, not every team is going to be at the level of a Spain, a US and England in terms of how many analysts and teams they can bring, and maybe how, I guess, not clued up, but like experienced and skilled in using...
how many cameras that they have. Like, say England will always have people in the gantry filming their games. Analysts, they'll be looking down, they'll be feeding down to the touchline about what's going on. They'll be watching every single move. They'll be watching for errors. They'll be able to go and like make checks for half time so they can send clips down to the touchline for the coach to go in and then talk to the players about maybe certain things they've spotted in the game. And that is pretty normal for an England team. It's pretty normal in the WSL as well. But for a good portion, I guess, of countries, especially at under-17s levels, it's not going to be that common. So it's basically providing a baseline. And yes, there will be teams that have more, so they will always have these 1% extras here.
They can enhance it.
But at least there is a baseline where people aren't starting from scratch and teams aren't starting from scratch, and they can get this 50-page report, digest what they need from it, pick out a few points about, I mean, it's everything from like how often they cross from the right-hand side to the press to the, you know, the setup. So I think there's a lot of stuff and data that you can learn from that, and it's about processing that and taking it back to your team and improving them. Especially
when you think about what a short turnaround it is during tournaments and how hard it would be, you know, for teams to develop all of this analysis and data for themselves, turn it into some sort of digestible report, then implement said analysis ahead of the next game. So to be able to get something like this provided for you is amazing. And as you said, like, yes, some teams are going to be able to enhance it, but I just think the fact that it's kind of leveling that playing field is amazing. It's utilizing technology really, really well, and not only helping players on the pitch, it's helping your coaches, your staff to upskill themselves. So then should they move on to older groups or senior level, you know, it won't be that much of a new thing to be using this kind of technology, but it is going to make you more tactically and technically astute, right? Yeah. I think it's really cool. After that kind of pitch side tour, we went up to the gantry, up into like near the media section and all that kind of stuff, to look at where the analysts and the TSG, which is the technical study group, sit during the games. Now this is cool, and the TSG is at every tournament now, at all youth levels, men's and women's. And you remember that report that came out after the 2023 World Cup, which was super interesting. If you want to give people a very quick overview of that, what that is.
So basically, they sit at games, they watch it on, they have monitors, they have all of these like different screens. They can plug in what they see happening. So if it's a cross from the right hand side, they plug it in. But they are also there to spot trends. So it's generally like people with analytical or football brains, coaches, current coaches, ex-coaches, ex-players, I think generally. And it's about finding trends in the game. So it's about finding what point triggers the North Korea press, or whether England are more successful at scoring goals from the right hand side to the left hand side, or where the most touches on the ball came from. It's all of these kind of trends for each team, and then I guess from that you get the overall trends from the game, and it's using both the eye of the person, so
the expert.
So they're watching the game and they're thinking, oh yes, we can see this, and then they go and have their look at the data and they see if that they corroborate and it backs it up. And it's a really important part of the game. I think they produce reports and they go onto the kind of the training site, the FIFA training site, which teams can sign up to and access as well. And it's a real crucial bit of, I think, development in terms of, in the women's game for a long time, it's been so hard with data and stuff. And for a long time, even 5-6 years ago at tournaments, you would struggle to get footage of your opponent, especially if they were an opponent that you didn't play regularly or they weren't a top 10 team. You struggle to get that kind of stuff. So this is trying to make things more readily available about what teams are doing, and teams can learn from what they're doing, but they can also learn from their opponents as well.
And it also shows like new trends or new things, because something we've spoken about it on previous episodes, something we definitely noticed was the improvement of quality both tactically and technically on the pitch. And that's something that, I'm looking forward to seeing this report afterwards, because you can maybe actually glean some information and see where the improvements are at this level, which is really cool. Now, Sophie has just told you what the TSG does, and we're going to test her knowledge and see if she was right. Because we got to sit down with one of FIFA's footballing experts, Pascal Zuberbuehler, and Vanessa Bernauer, who is a former Swiss midfielder. She's only recently retired, because they're both part of the TSG, and I got to chat to them about what the TSG group do. And what was really cool is not only hearing from a FIFA footballing expert, but then also from a former player who's experiencing this for the first time, and how they utilise both the kind of expert side of things and then your players, your coaches, and how they're kind of working together. It's really cool. Here's what they have to say. I guess first of all, just to give our listeners an idea of what you do as a group.
Yes, okay. The TSG is a technical study group. We bring on every tournament. We are choosing some experts. Doesn't matter if those are female experts or men experts. We bring all together in a mix, and I think it's very important today in the modern world now to bring both experts in. And we are observing all tournaments from FIFA. This starts by under 17, under 20, senior level men and women football. We have tournaments in the FIFA like futsal, beach soccer, and also now the Club World Cup. Okay, and those tournaments we are choosing a technical study group. We bring a strong people in. They understand about the football game. We are observing every game, okay, in the stadium, live or emotive from this World Cup. And on the end, we bring all this analyzing out then in the media on our FIFAtrainingcenter.com website, and together with our football performance and insight team. Football performance and insight team is a very important group here in the FIFA. We created a lot in the last 4 years. We created a lot of analyzing the games data-based. We create our FIFA football language. We are not paying any more money for providers. A lot of money 4 years ago or 5 years ago, we paid a lot of money for providers that they can bring us some data. And this we have now everything in-house. And when I started this, I have to mention, when I started in 2017 in the FIFA, in the technical department, we were 7 or 8 people. Okay. Today, with the full group, with everything, we are over 200. It shows, I think, a lot how FIFA was growing and how professional we are working for.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Yeah, so basically me as a TSG, I'm watching here all the games, like in the venue at Santo Domingo. And yeah, with FIFA analyst by my side. So we watch together the games, observe, we discuss, and yeah, so basically I tell him what I'm seeing, and he sometimes dives maybe deeper into the details with all the analyst stuff, programs. And yeah, and after every game, we bring like a match report. So we create one and bring together usually 3 topics, 3 important things we saw during the games. And yeah, and sometimes we also bring out some articles on the FIFA training centers. And yeah, so that's basically what I'm doing here.
I think also important to add is the change in the football. When I started in the 90s, I'm a little bit older than you. When I started in the 90s as a professional, we didn't have data really, and this changed dramatically in the past. And now, especially in the women football, I have to say I'm really excited to observe and to develop the women football. It's unbelievable how the women football is growing. And this is very interesting to see. And as you mentioned already before, the previous Women World Cup in Australia and New Zealand was amazing to observe. And now we are here on the under 17 level. And I think, Vanessa, you know better, the under 17, even today, it's a massive progress from 2 years ago or 4 years ago.
I was going to ask you that. Like, it's something I noticed from the first game, Dominican Republic against Ecuador. I was so impressed with the quality at such a young age.
Yeah, sure. That I can confirm that it's also nice now for me to see the other side, now behind the scenes, so what FIFA is doing, and they're doing a lot, and I'm really impressed. So also already at this level now, all the data we're creating here, everything like the observation, all what they're doing here at this level, it's fantastic. So I think you see that also then and on the pitch, because the girls, I'm really enjoying the performances, how they perform, the level. I think it's such high. They are, some of them, they are already that good at this level and at this age. And so I'm not just talking about technique or stuff. It's more also the tactical aspects. I think they grow a lot, and the understanding of the game. So yeah, I especially observe had an eye on the midfielder. So I'm really impressed on how they move, know how they're always scanning their environment. They know where they are and the positioning. It's nice. It's great to see how they grow, what possibility they now have also at this age.
I was going to ask you as a player, like for you, seeing that they at this level have access to this level of input, where you think that can go for them as they get older as a player, and knowing each tournament that they're involved in, they'll have this level of resource behind them.
Yeah, I want to say what to be mentioned, like also with the development in the clubs now, to going to the federation stuff. You see, I think not everywhere, but they have already a better environment, a better infrastructure to get trained, to get developed, and you see that already, I think. And now it's just the beginning, I think, I hope, because you see how big potential like women football has, and you see what's possible and how fast, when you really invest or really want, how fast we can grow. And so I think it's if we continue like that, if we always a bit more for women football, and step by step, it can be, there's no limit. No, I think it's I'm really impressed about the level here, what I'm seeing, the performances. So at this age, so when I think back a few years ago, or maybe when I played the under-20 World Cup, I think that was like that. For sure, we didn't have like this, all this possibility around, all this, data, but especially the infrastructure, the coaching teams, they're still not 100% complete in every country, but it's nice to see how it's growing, and yeah, I think there's still a lot to grow, a lot possible. Yeah.
So actually, I think you described that pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Well done.
Yeah, I listen. I listen to what people are telling me. It's really, really insightful, and I've heard about this happening over the last few tournaments. I know that there was a group that also went out to the Under-20 World Cup in Colombia. It also contained Heather O'Reilly. So there's a lot of opportunities for, as I said before, ex-players, coaches, whatever, to expand and, I guess, build up their skills as well as like helping build up the skills of the other teams and coaches within these tournaments.
What was also cool while we were there, before England's final game, we got to shadow TSG for the first half of the Poland-Brazil game. We got very distracted by the bloody weather. My God, that was the game, okay? I don't know if we mentioned the rain. We definitely mentioned the rain. But that was really cool because we got to kind of see them in action. We got to join Sean and Elliot. Elliot was the kind of the football expert, the analyst side of things, and Sean Goater, you may have heard of him. And he was there obviously helping out in the TSG as well. And again, it's interesting to get both sides of that coin, if you like. You've got the analyst and you've got the ex-coach player, current coach, ex-player, and giving their insight as well on how they've been finding it. And here's what they said to Soph.
Hey Sean, thank you for talking to us today. You're here as part of the TSG for FIFA. How did you get involved in being here?
Well, coincidentally, I've always been in touch with Zubi. We always stay connected, and because I'm also an assistant coach at Aston Villa women's team. Last season I was with Manchester City women's team. Whenever the opportunity arose for me to be able to fit this in and from my schedule point of view, he was always happy to have me. So I'm always pleased to see the young players that are coming through the game and how they're developing and evolving.
Tell us a bit about what you do when you're out here and you're looking at the games. What kind of things are you looking for, and what's kind of your role?
Well, my role primarily is the use of my knowledge of the game and looking for patterns. So we have here, this is set up from Elliot, it's all the data analysis stuff, but what we do is we look at certain things like build-up, progression, final third, counter-attack, and then we have red tickers, which is basically like high press, mid press block, low block, counter press, and it's real simple. Once I see those sort of things, I'm sort of hitting those buttons, and he will take that information away, and it really aligns with what we're seeing. And so we would sometimes have conversations about the game and how it's going, and how a team may be sitting off, and there's loads of space in between midfield, making it difficult for them as a team. And maybe teams that actually play high and compress, which makes it easier for them to win second balls. So these buttons here primarily, he would analyze, and it will corroborate with what I'm seeing. And I will look for patterns in the game and how they build up, because you start to see consistent patterns. But also you can see whether or not that team is doing something that's probably new to the game or it's evolving the game. So essentially that's what I do.
And do you feel it's improving you as a coach as well, being here and seeing all of these trends?
Oh yes, definitely. I think what's really good is we've all for years been able to watch the men's World Cup and see how they play, but there's really similarities in the women's game and seeing how they play similar to the men in terms of their style of play. North Korea, for instance, they're very disciplined, organized, technically really good. And if you look at their men's team, it's very similar. I'd say the same for Nigeria and what I've seen. Go on the front foot, they squeeze teams, they make it a physical game. They win those physical battles, but they also are very technical and have really good high levels of tactics as well. So it's for me, it's eye-opening to see that actually, whether it's the men's game or the women's game, the game and how they play for their country is very much the same.
Hey Elliot, thank you for talking to us today. In terms of like the kind of data that you're looking at, the trends that you're looking at, what are you looking to collect as a TSG group and as an analyst to then be able to like produce into reports?
Okay, so we try and focus a lot of our work off the observations from the technical study group. So trying to make sense of what they're seeing on the pitch from a data point of view. So for instance, if when we do and produce like tactical articles, we try and pick out key data metrics which can kind of back that up, which is what we're kind of looking for really. And then during the game I have access to our enhanced football intelligence metrics. So for this it's like attempt creation, player involvement, etc. So that can really help us when it comes to player of the match. We can make a more objective choice as opposed to just going, oh, it's a player that scored 2 goals. We can see who was involved the most or who was influential behind the scenes, so to speak.
It's all part of building the game, isn't it? The women's game especially, that probably is still catching up, especially at this level. We've seen such I mean, certainly I have over the last week that I've been here, seen such a great standard of quality, I think. But all of this is kind of supporting that progress in the game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen the women's game grow immensely over the past 4 or 5 years, especially since I started working in FIFA. And I think with that becomes an increasing demand for data and an increased demand for better services for the women's game as well. So I think the fact that we're able to provide such a high level of data for an under-17s tournament speaks volumes to how we want to try and progress the women's game and try and get a lot more people involved.
And it certainly helps the teams and the players on the pitch as well, because they have access to all of the stuff that you're doing over here and collecting after the game, so they can look at it, they can use it to build themselves as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key idea and principle behind our group is to try and make the game a lot more accessible to other nations and to try and level the playing fields, because it shouldn't just be if you've got the biggest resources you get access to the best data. Like we're quite open and we want everyone to be able to access our data and to try and make the game better.
So it's so cool. Like, as you say, it's, you know, it's not just about improving the game on the pitch with this kind of work, but again, giving, you know, former players, current coaches, the chance to come and experience something like this at a major tournament.
Yes, indeed. And I actually really like what Sean said, because he said that at the moment it's his eye and then he's finding that the data corroborates it. But it's basically relying on what he sees on the pitch and those trends, which I think in this day and age, there's understandably a huge emphasis put on data. But I do think the human eye is really, really important in the situation. And he said in the future that maybe it's the other way around. They haven't tried it yet, where the data comes first and then it drives the opinion. But I do like the idea that you're still using that human sort of consciousness about football and understanding of the game and tactical understanding, rather than just relying on the numbers to kind of come up with theories about what's happening. I think it does have to be a marriage of sorts. It has to be, you know, I do think the human eye is so important in these things. And like when I'm personally, I mean, I'm not an analyst or a scout, maybe one day, that's a future career dream, but I do like to think that my eyes are pretty good when I'm looking at players and I'm spotting potential, and then you can look at the data to back that up.
And it also feels pretty good when the data does back it up.
Yeah.
So look, hopefully you guys have found this episode as interesting as we found kind of putting it together and researching it. And as you said kind of at the beginning of the episode, how data is something we've often lacked at times in the women's game. And when you're getting this level of data from the youth groups, from under-17s, you think about how that's going to then impact a player who, you know, might be trying to get into a team or a club. And at times you might say about a young player, well, we've got no data. We don't know how, you know, what they're like, or an analysis of how they play, or, you know, how that could fit into our team. Stuff like this is going to be so valuable, not just in helping these national teams develop, but also individual players, building a kind of bank of information about them, which could then go on and help their future careers.
It could help decide their career. It could get them a pro contract somewhere. It could help them, I don't know, stay in a country rather than have to leave. It's so important. And once, it's a bit like their portfolio, right? It's like with all of us, you know, content people in a way. We build a video of the stuff that we've done to go and pitch to someone, and it's essentially like that with the data of players, and they'll get clips and they'll get all of the numbers that go into everything on top of what they get from their teams already. And that can only go and serve them when they're going to talk to the clubs and stuff, when they're at the age where they can sign pro contracts and go, this is what I can do, this is I've been at a major tournament and this is how I backed it up with these numbers, and this is what you might get from me in the future.
And then from a kind of coaching side of things, like it doesn't just kind of end at the end of the tournament. There is that training and that information and that learning is all available post-tournament. And then FIFA also hosts things like webinars and talks and roundtables for coaches to continue learning. So it's like a continuous process, and it's quite an exciting time to start delving into it, because you think 5 years time where it could be.
Where it all could be. I mean, the technology is only growing, like we saw at the beginning, we talked about at the beginning, and then the other stuff is only going to grow too, and the expertise within the game is only going to get better, because and that surely is, well, it definitely is what we need. It's what we've seen, why we've seen it grow so quickly in the last few years, is because everyone has become more tactically astute, better technically. They're all driven by analysing what happens rather than just putting 11 players on the field, and I think that's only going to go improve. And we've seen it. Yes, we're a bit behind maybe than the men's side of the game in terms of the resource that has been put into the game. Historically, hasn't been as big, but the ceiling is so high for a lot of these players that are at these tournaments, and a lot of these coaches at these tournaments. The ceiling is so high now.
And also, like, something Vanessa touched on was when she talked about like what it was like when she was at youth levels and versus what it's like now, and seeing everything that's available now, which just kind of highlights the speed and the growth of the game, which is super exciting. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed researching it. It is one of a number of extra episodes that we've been able to put together thanks to Xero. And yeah, it's you should be subscribed so you don't miss any, because I don't know if I've ever mentioned it before. If you've not subscribed, you need to subscribe, guys. I drive her mad by saying it. She gets so bored. I bet you do too. But if it does encourage you to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, then it is all worth it. We will be back very, very soon with another one for you all. So make sure you're tuned in.